That's awesome, man. Now I gotta ask you a question because for a lot of music fans, the word co-producer or
Uh-huh.
co-writer, that confuses a lot of people because they don't really know who's doing what on the track. So
Right.
I gotta ask you, like, when you're working with Brian or Adonis or Jonte or any of them, do you
Uh-huh.
have a specific certain role or do they vary from track to track?
Um, well, let me take the first part of your question in terms of co-writer and co-producer.
Yep.
Uh, co co-writer is a simpler one to explain, in my opinion, at least for what we do. Co-writer basically is uh, any of the elements who were or any of the people that wrote the song.
Okay.
Whether someone wrote 99% and the other person wrote 1%, they're both co-writes
Mm-hmm.
because they wrote it together.
Yep.
Whether someone just came up with the concept and the other one, did the rest, so they split it half. They're equally co-writes. Now you have marketing that highlights a particular writer, as the writer for the song, and a lot of times it's based on what that writer has done and how well their marketing plan is. But at the end of the day, co-writes just indicate that there are more than one writer. Um, Co-producer also indicates that there's more than one producer, but the varying differences between co-producer and two equal producers really is subjective. It's based on the camp. It's based on the two individuals and how they interpret what would constitute as production. A lot of times people think making the track is producing the track, and that's not the case. Producing the track is seeing the track from conception to reality, from A to Z, or seeing the song really, because it's not just about the track. The producer oversees the writing, whether or not the producer writes on the song or not. He oversees the writing. He oversees the mixing. He gives the final word. You know what I'm saying on everything. And whether it's a co-production or equal production, those two people or three people or four people are all involved in making sure the record actually comes out the way they envision it from the beginning. A lot of times when Brian, myself, and Adonis work, the interesting part about it is that each of us are equally producers as we are writers. When Brian, myself, and Adonis work together, a lot of times Adonis takes the lead at writing because he is amazing. Like he is incredibly fast and accurate at depicting an emotion. A lot faster than myself, and I'm sure Brian would agree, a lot faster than him. So it's almost like you give the team member the opportunity to display whatever their strength is that's greater than yours, just for the benefit of the team. So, I consider myself a good writer, but Adonis is quick and he's efficient and he's great. You know what I'm saying? So we always defer to him. Now at the same time, Brian and I have a lot of input, and there's been occasions where we've equally, all three of us have written the song together. You know what I'm saying? Most of the times when it's production, Brian and I usually handle the majority of the music. There are occasions when Brian will handle the majority or the I guess blueprint of the track, the keys and the programming, and there are occasions where I come on top and do a lot of what we consider like overdubs or the extra sprinkles, the string arrangements, and some of the lead lines, and maybe some additional keys and something like that, just to build it up, and grow it to the next level. So there are other times when I'll start the track. You know what I'm saying? I'll start with piano or keys or whatnot, and then Brian would take that loop and build upon that. So a lot of times when we do it that way, it's an equal production. You know what I'm saying? Because Brian and I also both involved in not just in creating the record, but making sure it comes to reality at the end, after the mix, after the song is written. You know what I'm saying? And giving our input. So we're equally in the sense producers in that way. And it just depends. Every case is different. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes it might be required on me to be more of a writer on a particular track. And or it might require for Brian to be more of a writer, or Adonis to impart in some ways in production. So it just varies, and we've been pretty good at respecting each other and working together effectively, and we definitely respect each other's gifts. And I think that's made for the greater benefit of the songs that we've created, that we've been able to, respectfully, either bow out when it's time to bow out or be aggressive. Learning how to play as a team. That's how we've been able to be so successful. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. This leads to my next question though, because I admire a lot of the work that you guys do because every song that you guys produce or create is real, and what I mean by real is musically it's real, lyrically it's real, and every song that you guys do, it just connects with the artist. It's like you guys tailor made it for the artist.
Right.
And I think that makes the song much more real or believable.
Right.
What is the mindset when you're going into the studio and making a song?
Well, it is to make a real song. I think it all starts with the conversation, and this is something that I learned really by paying attention to Brian and to Adonis and to Jonte and to all the great writers and producers that I've worked with, and particularly early on in my career. They all start with the conversation with the artist. You want to be able to make the artist so comfortable that they are themselves. They take off the mask of being a celebrity, of being an artist, that they tell you whether it's a personal story or it's a story that they vicariously experienced. And you want to base the song off of real emotions. A lot of our songs are either done that way or personal. Like, there are many songs that I've contributed to or I create that are very, very, very personal and close to me, of experiences that I've either faced one-on-one heads-on or have faced, through other people. And I think that's really important and critical in making a record that is a hit. You want to be relatable. You want people to be like, hey, I felt that way too. I thought I was the only one, but apparently I'm not, so I feel better about my feelings. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of therapeutic, and I always call it like a musical psychologist. I kind of consider myself like that. So in going and approaching into a song, having a real conversation to come out with a real song that makes a real impact and a real change in somebody's life. That's what it is.
Okay. Now, I know you're also doing some solo production aside from the work that you do with B. Cox. So tell me a little bit about that and what the major difference is.
Well, some of the solo stuff that I'm working with Q Parker from 112. And he's working on a solo album, actually, that's due out later this year. I've also worked with Tyrese and continuously working with him this year. We've done several songs together. He's also coming out with a solo album. Brandy, I've worked with her earlier this year and plan to get back in with her before the close of the year. She's working on a solo project. Trey Songz, LaToya Luckett, and I can't forget my artist. I have an artist that I'm developing right now. Her name is Samantha Bailey Cruz. Samantha, Samatha Bailey, Bailey Cruz, Cruz. And you can find out about her through her YouTube, through her Twitter. Her YouTube is /Samantha Bailey Cruz. So those are the projects that I'm really dedicated and focused on. Of course, there are a lot that come in and that I draw attention to, that I'll be more influential in contributing before the end of the year. But those are the ones that I'm focused on at this moment. The ones that Brian and I are doing together include Johnny Gill. And Johnny is, of course, a legend in the game and still has a very recognizable tone. So we've been very excited about that project. We've done a couple records already, and he's in mixed stage. So his album should be out before the close of the year as well. And, of course, Genuine, which we just did, and we're getting ready to do another run with Genuine soon. So those are the main projects that I'm focused on right this particular minute. What was the second part of your question?
What's the major difference between the work you do with Brian and the work you do by yourself?
I think, Brian and I are very similar in terms of background and musical study. We're both pianists first. And the reason why I'm starting with the similarities is because it's going to highlight any differences or let it be what it is. We're both pianists first. Church piano players, jazz piano players. So there's a lot of similarities in progression. I think the general approach that varies is probably in the drum programming. And I think that holds true for most producers. Most producers make their distinction not just in instrumentation and what they select to use in the track, but in the way they program the drums and the drum samples they actually use. So Brian has his own sample bank. I have my own sample bank. He has his own rhythm or rhythmic way of approaching a drum. I do as well, and we have variations in the way we sequence or the way we format a record. Brian he does a lot of claps in his record. If you notice, a lot of very very loud claps as the snare. I do some of that, but not quite. I might do a clap, but it might not be as pristine as the one that Brian uses. I might use a deeper clap. You know what I mean? And the difference probably is highlighted in the fact that a lot of my training has come through orchestral stuff. Like, I'm a violin player, so a lot of my songs are gonna be kind of cinematic. You know what I mean? Kind of orchestral, and a lot of the contributions that we do together, you're gonna hear some of that string arrangements and orchestral influence in there. So I guess that's the main key difference. But I find similarities in myself and Brian and myself and Babyface and any other producer that's been successful. There's a formula and a basis, and that's solid melody. That's solid chord progression, that's solid drum programming. And at the end of the day, I just want to be able to have those elements in everything that I do: solid chord progression, melody, drum programming, and of course the end result, the song. So